So this world map is about haplogroup R, Y-DNA haplogroup R. And what is of most interest is the highest frequencies, for instance, this one from 60 to 100%. You can find here, north of North America, Western Europe, a little bit in Africa, and South Asia. This is probably more or less the Indus Valley, where the Indus Valley culture was. What is marked is the subclade and the mutation that is characteristic for the subclade. The subclade and what is characteristic for the subclade. The subclade and the mutation that is characteristic for the subclade. So haplogroup R is a relatively recent haplogroup. For instance, R1b arrives and takes over the present haplogroups roughly 5,000 years ago. Obviously, that is much later than the assumed out of Africa 50 to 80,000 years ago. What calls our attention is that while haplogroup R is the most dominant haplogroup in the world today, amongst us 8 billion modern humans, it comes out of the Americas. It doesn't come out of Africa. Besides, this is a child, this is a descendant of the root or of the parent of the ancestor. This is the ancestor, and the B means that it is a child, it is a descendant of the ancestor. This mutation in Africa is different from all other mutations, and that is probably because it comes from another location. This mutation comes from this location because the gyre rotates like this. This gyre rotates like this, so most probably comes from here, and here, because of the distance, is another mutation. Comes from a slightly different cradle. Um, but the most important here, the dominant haplogroup doesn't come from Africa, because this is not the ancestor. It comes from the Americas. That is the closest ancestor that is still present amongst Native Americans and amongst Americans, but a reduced number because it's present in tribes. One more thing, there is L1B in North America, but it's not marked here. And consensus explains that it is a consequence of the conquest. But it is much more probable that before they migrated, that in fact the R1B was created in cradles in North America, and it's much more probable that the number of R1B amongst Native Americans, mostly in the eastern part of North America, that they are descendants from R1 that did not migrate to Western Europe and Western Eurasia. So there is no way of consensus trying to explain the presence of R in the Americas by saying that they come from Europe, because what is present in the Americas is much older and are the ancestors of what was and still is present in Western Eurasia and Western Europe. One of the arguments that consensus could use against us saying that this is the ancestor is the fact that around the Balkai Lake in Siberia, L1, like here, uh, fossils were found, but they are over 20,000 years old and are not present when this migration took place. So they cannot be the source, they cannot be the ancestors, for instance, by migrating over land. And also, we claim that, or I claim that navigation is the most important factor in all in all population turnover events. In other words, in us 8 billion modern humans. So we have arguments against any claim about this fossil that died out long before these migrations took place. And you see, it's not there today. While the ancestor we are talking about, which is prehistoric, is clearly present in high frequencies in the Americas, especially in this part. Another claim of consensus was, and we don't see a lot of insistence anymore, another claim of consensus was that this R1 would be the ancestor of all Americans, of the into the Americas. But that is not possible simply because the R1, even the R1, certainly the descendants of R1, are younger than the Q that is in the Americas, especially the Q that settled first in South America. So the ancestor cannot be younger than the descendants. So the Q, the Native Americans with Q, which is the majority, are not the ancestors, are not the descendants of these R1 fossils found and called ancient North Eurasians that lived but went extinct over 20,000 years ago. So it still confirms it is out of Americas, and not at all that, at least for R, that it is out of Africa. So and Q, R, is a dominant haplogroup, is the dominant haplogroup in the world today. This is a map of the gyres. This is the North Atlantic gyre that delivers all that was from the east coast of North America, delivers somehow to Europe, especially to Ireland, but also to northern Europe. And from there, they can migrate through rivers as far as the Black Sea and the Aral Sea. Sorry, the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. This is the Aral Sea. Obviously, they also can migrate into the Mediterranean and populate parts of the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia. And the heads of the Tigris and the Euphrates are very close to the Mediterranean, and it's only to reach their heads and you can populate or influence or turn over Mesopotamia. So world map of the Y-DNA haplogroups. This is the first settling in the Americas. It's QM3. In this map, it's called Q3, as if it were later than Q1. And Q2 must be somewhere as well. But anyhow, it is not later, it is the first to settle. So this Q3 is older than the R1 that was found uh, fossils of, older than 20,000 years ago, next to the Baikal Lake in Siberia. So it's not the ancestor of the Americas. Certainly not of the much older QM3 in South America, in the Amazon forest.